All right, I want to make this abundantly clear. Doug Crosby and I do not like each other. Okay? Doug Crosby will sit there, he hates me, and I'm glad. Okay? It makes me happy. So there is no love lost between Doug Crosby and me. But when you're talking about this situation, I made a living off of flying all over, being in Russia on a Friday and being in Las Vegas on a Saturday. Okay? Did it all the time, never missed. And so officials get assignments. They get licensed in different places. Now, Doug is licensed in the Mohegan Tribe in Connecticut. He was there for the Bellator on Friday night. He did the main event. People didn't like his score. I'm agreeing. I don't like his score. I don't think it's a good score. I thought the other two scores were the correct scores. So you take a look, and then they see him, and this is where the real thing has come up. Is he had a score of 50-45 for the losing fighter. So there's never been in any, I guess, MMA fight where in a 5-round fight, one judge has gone 50-45 for the guy that loses. So that's part of the controversy, I guess. So that's there. Okay. Then he flies the next day and gets to Las Vegas and works the UFC. And he has the Paddy Pimblett fight, which is the one that now then there's controversy over that, because basically a lot of it is based upon the Bellator fight. Let's just be honest. If there wasn't the Bellator fight, people would not be happy. Paddy is that guy. If you're looking at him, he is polarizing. He has people that love him and he has people that hate him, and that's certain fighters, and that's okay. The people that don't like him think that, it was a robbery and he should never have won that fight. And the people that like him think that it was a good call and he should have won the fight. If it wasn't for the Bellator one, I don't know if there would be as much controversy. But the fact that Doug Crosby was in both locations, look at Herb Dean does it all the time. Mark Goddard does it all the time. There's not, the regulatory bodies are going to tell you, there's not enough top officials, is the way they'll say it, for us to not share these people back and forth. So that's why you have people that, like I used to, we travel, and we travel, from one location to the next. There were times, I was doing fights on Tuesday, I was doing fights on Thursday, I was doing fights on Friday, and I was doing fights on Saturday. I was traveling to all of those, catching a flight early in the morning to get to, the next one, and did it for an entire career. So the fact that he was in both places, that's done all the time. All the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Now, let me I'm gonna kind of go a little bit hard in the paint.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go more hard on the paint in the media.
Okay.
Look, Doug Crosby is obviously not the best judge. That's his history of his decisions.
If you go and look at the history, and and the problem is you can look at MMA decisions and things like that. Look, I've had, and you've been there, and it hasn't been with him because I don't talk to him. He doesn't talk to me, and I don't want to talk to him, and I don't talk to him. But I've had blow-ups with commissioners or people over him and his shitty scores. But what happens? Nothing, because it's a matter of, it's just my opinion, and it really is. I'm not saying that I'm any better than anybody else, but you can take a look and say, hey, where is the credentials that tells you that this is the guy that is the best person to put in that seat? Where are they, Josh?
I don't see him. So I'm not going to argue the fact that he probably needs to either get knocked down to a lower tier until he can actually begin to understand how the scoring criteria is meant to happen. I'm not going to argue that point. But what I am going to argue is that the media right now, what took you guys so long? I'm just going to be honest. He's made decisions that were a lot worse, but in a lot bigger gapped fights. That fight with Rafael Stotts, I could kind of see how he went 50-45. I'm not saying it's right by all means, but the guy kept getting takedowns. The guy kept dominating positions. The guy just didn't strike enough. But that's where I say, like, he got into a rhythm of, and this can happen. The guy got into a rhythm. He got more takedowns. He controlled more positions. He had dominant positions on the back. These fights were not, none of these fights were not like robberies by any mean. I didn't look at the Paddy fight as looking at it as a robbery. They were not like, oh, this guy definitely won. I had Gordon win the fight. To me, it was clear that Gordon won the fight.
Same
but
here.
I can look at it the other way. Paddy was able to knock Gordon back quite a bit, threw some big shots, landed some big combinations. Now, let's take into consideration where these judges were sitting. Did I get to see Gordon's face get snapped back and the sweat fly off of his face, blood go onto the front row? If I'm that judge, or was my back to that person and I didn't see it as much? And so you have to take all those things in consideration. Now, I don't know the UFC's, their TV thing situation. Do they have one in Vegas? Do they not?
Yes, they do. But
Okay.
let's be honest. Okay, let's take a look at the UFC. The cage and the way that they situate it, because they're the ones that decide where the judges sit. Mm-hmm. They have had it for as long as, the Zuffa has been part of, the UFC and in owning it. You have two cage doors on the octagon. The judges sit in those two spots, are two of the judges' chairs, which means you're looking through a gate, which has extra poles, and you're looking through more poles that are up and down because it's got to have this, the pole to hold the gate. And so you have sometimes this much padding in front of you that the fight is going past and through. It's not an easy thing to do. And yes, you're trying to move your head back and forth. It's not easy to see things. And then you've got the referee moving in front of you at times. And look, it's tough. Mm-hmm. But that's on the UFC. And the UFC can sit there and complain all they want. You give one judge a good seat. One. That's where you see the ring card girl sitting. There's one judge sitting there. That judge has a good, clear view. Other than that, the other two judges get shit seats. Change it. You want better scores? Change it. Because you should.
I think in this scenario though, John, like, people make too much of these things being robberies when in reality they're not robberies. They're just close fights.
It's a close fight.
I'm tired of hearing robbery. That term's being thrown around as much as the fucking words the GOAT. Stop with that shit. Okay? Stop with it. It's so annoying to hear. The fight was close. The Paddy fight was close. The Stotts and Sabatel fight was for sure close. He got onto a rhythm of, hey, the guy that I think is winning is the guy getting all the takedowns. Okay.
But but the problem with that is this. You're scoring off of an old system.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to evolve with everybody else, because if you're on your own system, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You can't be on that. I don't give a shit if you don't like the new system or not. Mm-hmm. Don't like it, don't judge. But you have got to be in line with your peers. As far as I give credit for this, my peers give credit for that. It can't be, well, this is the way I look at it. No one gives a fuck the way you look at it.
Yep. And I'm sure in many of these ref meetings and many of these commission meetings, the conversation is, well, I look at it this way. Well, no, we don't care how you look at it. But I started this whole conversation with the fact that maybe he does need to go down to just doing the prelims, or maybe he needs to not work the big shows. He needs to go back down to doing King of the Cage or LFA or whatever, and focus on judging back down there and then bringing him back up. But that's how I started this whole thing. But I go back to the media though. The media is making a big deal about this, and they're making a big deal about it over two very close fights.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it. Like, and then they're trying to, like you said, they're trying to correlate. Oh, well, he was in Mohegan and then he was here in Vegas. That's what refs and judges do. And like you've said, you've done it pretty much your whole career. So let's not make too much of that either, because now all of a sudden you guys have figured out that, oh my God, these guys actually do more than one show a week. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You guys are traveling everywhere on very minimal, probably sleep, showing up and doing your jobs. I understand that part of it, and I get it. Like, but I also want people to understand, like, there was so many fights from before with him that people should have had their arms thrown up. Like, what in the is going on? What is going on? And it just took now for it to happen. This should have been taken care of a long time ago. And I think some of the live that I was on the commission needs to say, hey, I know we don't have a lot of top tier judges, but we need to remedy this situation as soon as possible. Mike Mazzulli just put out a thing saying, hey, we're looking into it right now. We're going to, go back over it. We're going to talk with him and the other judges and see what they saw and why they scored it that way. At least he came out publicly.
Which is a good thing to do.
Commissions don't do that. They tell you to eat shit. Okay. This, at least Mazzulli's coming out and going, hey, you know what? We see maybe there's a discrepancy of how the judges were done. It's very obvious. Let's go ahead and sit down with the 3 judges, walk it through and what you guys saw as we watch the fight back through. And they're going to look to solve the problem. I just don't think it's going to take for Crosby to fix the way he judges stuff. That one sit down. I don't think it's going to happen. Because he has a tendency to do this quite a bit. So you're going to have to basically put him to the D leagues or the B leagues, whatever you want to call it. The G League in basketball. I don't know, whatever it is. You got to put him back down. And then you're going to have to bring him back up if he starts to score better.
But let me ask you a question, Josh. You and I have known each other for how long?
How long? I've known you since 2002, right?
Okay.
When I had my
fight, But in all that time, up until 2018, all of our conversations were either as a fighter and referee talking to you, or, hey, man, how's it going? How you doing today?
Yeah, that was it. We never really talked, yeah.
Okay.
I was a punk and you were old. Yeah, so.
But that's part of the problem is you have certain fighters that'll tell you have somebody that's coming to them and offering them sponsorships. How is it that you have judges or referees now doing things as far as, oh, here, I can help you with this, or I can help you with this, and you're a fighter? Because if you're that fighter, that's great. What happens when that fighter now is fighting in front of you and you help them with something? Do you have the possibility of, is there a conflict of interest?
Back this up. You went completely off judging fights.
Well, let's just be honest.
Where are we at?
This comes from, you have someone that hands out.
Who's you?
Doug Crosby.
Okay.
He hands out sheets saying, you guys need to say these lines, because he comes from the movie industry. Hey, he puts guys in stunts and movies because, hey, I can get you into this movie. It's just, you have to separate it. You have to separate this. You want to be in the movies and you want to do that, that's great. You can still do the judging, but you can't bring fighters involved in it to gain any kind of, oh, hey, this guy did me a favor. Can't do it. And this is what, Ray Longo got into a long time ago with Doug Crosby. Ray Longo will not allow Doug Crosby to judge any of his fighters because he feels there's a conflict of interest there. Eric Nixick, now out of Extreme Couture, Rafion Stotts, he looks in and goes, hey man, every time I have a problem, it seems to be I look over now, and I'm telling you right now, Doug Crosby and Randy Couture, they have a relationship because Doug Crosby got Randy Couture into movies and stuff, into stunt work and stuff like that. This is where it all crosses over. And you look and you go, you can't have that crossover. There comes a point you've got to cut it off. You can say hi. You can say hello. That's all fine. When you start doing more, you're asking for trouble. It's bad. Can't have it. Now, I'm not saying he's doing it now, but I know it was done in the past.
There was a situation, I want to say it was Ronaldo, where a ref walked up. I don't know if he asked for an autograph or if he did something and it got caught on footage. Maybe it wasn't Ronaldo. It was a football player. Anyways, I can't remember, but they asked him when he was leaving the field. That shit was all over ESPN. It was all over all the news. It was like a big deal.
You know how many fighters I asked for pictures?
Zero.
That many.
Yeah.
Zero. Now, I had fighters all the time ask me for pictures. And I would take a picture with them. It's their picture. It's their phone. It's their camera, whatever. Okay. That many times.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, but you know what though? Now that you're not a ref anymore, you a hoe, bro. You be taking pictures with everybody.
I take pictures with everyone. It's totally different.
No,
These are the things you have to do,
yeah.
though. There has to be a separation.
I didn't know that about the movie thing, and that's kind of you have to think in terms of if a ref for a football game in the NFL, or for a ref in the NBA, or an umpire for Major League Baseball was like, hey, yo, yeah, let me get your number. I'm gonna go ahead and put you in some movies. That's a little, or I can get you this commercial. Ooh, I mean, yeah. And if you're the fighter fighting that fighter that he got into a movie.
See, I know
that's
too
even
much.
more weird. Yeah.
Okay. And it goes beyond the fighters. And this is where you look and you go, hey, for whatever reason, it hasn't been looked at. It needs to be looked at.
My whole take on it, and I've said it already, but my whole take is he should have been taken. He should have had to be addressed a long time ago because there were some bad calls on some big profile fights from in the past. But now we've let it get here, and it got stirred up because of this. But these two fights, these were some of the closest fights. Yeah, it just really came to head because all of a sudden, one day he had a 50-45, and one day he had a close fight for a star in Paddy Pimblett.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why it came to a head. Otherwise, we wouldn't be caring anymore. The media wouldn't care. People wouldn't care. And I looked at these two fights. I'm like, they could have won either way. I mean, I think at least the right people. I don't think Paddy should have won. I thought Gordon won, but at least Stotts. I thought Stotts won the fight, but it was close. I got to be honest. Had it been 20, what was it? What are the scores?
48-47, two times for Stotts.
If it would have went the other way and it was the same scores, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have been like, look, I get it. Maybe I didn't agree with it, but I think I get it. It was a close fight. It was a good fight. It was a really good fight. Two ferrets rolling around the ground, man, throwing some punches here and there, and on the feet, it was fun. I don't know. That's the way I took at it, though. That's the way I look at it, though, John. Dave, you were saying something off air about the Ariel Helwani comments about how the integrity of the sport's being jeopardized because of the Krause situation.
Yep.
I personally don't believe it is. I don't think it is. I think you have a one-off of a coach that you ever seen that graph? Fuck around, find out. That's exactly what happened. Well, he fucked around, and he's gonna fucking find out exactly what happens. And I actually liked Krause. Just he took it to another level. Oh, this is not a big deal. No, it's a big deal when you're gambling. You're skewing fights, and people are paying a lot of money, and it's a big deal. But I don't think the integrity of the sport is being questioned. I think that people are just navigating their way. Right now, all the promotions are having to navigate their way through the fact that there's new betting apps everywhere. The sport books are involved everywhere. This is a learning curve right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad that it's happening early right now so they can start implementing some really strict guidelines for this stuff not to happen again. So the integrity of the sport is never questioned when it comes to this type of stuff. Go to WeighingInMerch.com. Pick up some of our sweatshirts. See, I did it right. Hoodies and everything available on there. It's new material. As you can see, it's very nice quality, great stuff. And I want to thank you guys.
100% agree. Look at